Welcome to today's lesson. Today we are going to complete some of the aspects in JavaScript and do an e-commerce store. We shall set up the logic and proceed in our next lesson. One thing I always emphasize is understanding. I don't rush to finish, but I want people to understand this concept of JavaScript well so that they can handle any project without difficulties. So let me share my screen. Again, we still use the KamandeDevHub platform, but I'll also be sharing some complementary materials on some complementary slides to complement this. So for the KamandeDevHub platform, you can use it to practice these concepts and also understand the examples given so that you get to understand JavaScript well. So for today's class, we will emphasize some of the advanced JavaScript features, and we'll talk about mostly arrow functions, string literals. We talked about the spread and rest operator in our previous lectures. We also talked about the structuring, and we'll majorly look at these modules, the import and export more when we talk about React, which will be beginning our React course in the course of next week. Sorry, I realized I wasn't sharing my screen, so let me share my screen and welcome to today's lessons once again. Okay, let me share my entire screen. Screen is visible. So I was saying we'll still be using the KamandeDevHub platform for practice, but I'll be sharing the complementary materials. So for today's lesson, I want to cover the asynchronous JavaScript with some emphasis on the arrow functions, and then we'll begin our projects. So, okay, let me start by going through asynchronous JavaScript first, and we'll begin with the promises. So we need to understand the script is single-threaded, meaning that it processes our code from top to bottom and runs one function at a time. We'll look at these promises and async awaits. And we covered the classes and objects, so we won't be going into that, but we'll look some bits of error handling using this. We discussed the asynchronous JavaScript, that is making JavaScript work without waiting. We have this example here, console.log start, set timeout. We'll have a look at that. But why does asynchronous JavaScript matter? This is because you will understand that in most projects you will be working with third-party APIs, or maybe calling some slow processes that may include reading from a file or writing to a file, or even reading from the database, which might take some bits of time. Instead of JavaScript waiting for this function to complete so that it can proceed with other sections, we proceed with other sections while the result waits, and then after it finishes, we call the results back and process them. So why this matters is because if JavaScript waited for every network request, file read, or database query to finish, web pages will freeze, and this will cause poor user experiences. So asynchronous JavaScript keeps things moving while we wait in the backend. So the purpose of this lesson, we have the objective, that is explaining synchronous and asynchronous programming, then understanding JavaScript time, which is important, then explaining the call stack, web APIs, callback queues, and event loops. We'll write a callback function and explain what is callback hell, and then we will understand promises and their states. So promises have three states. That is, a promise can be fulfilled, a promise can be delayed, or a promise can be rejected. And then we will use the .then, catch, and finally logic. We'll also write asynchronous code using async await, especially when we'll be doing the project. We majorly depend on this. And then we will handle error using try and catch. And then we'll fetch data using the fetch API, which is a very important API. And then we will understand our promise utility methods and apply asynchronous programming in a real world project, that is our e-commerce project. Good, and then let's proceed. So the theme of this lesson is making JavaScript work without waiting. And we can see one of the biggest challenges in programming is handling operations that take time. We've given examples of downloading data, reading files, waiting for user inputs, or talking to a database. And asynchronous JavaScript let us execute or execution continue instead of freezing while it waits. There's also another concept that is more also enhanced using this asynchronous programming. That is event-driven programming. That is an event fires when a user carries out a certain action. So, okay, let's begin. Let's start with the synchronous programming. That is, we said our code runs from top to bottom. Let me create okay, we are talking about synchronous. Okay, so code runs normally from top to bottom. So for example, console.log hello, and then also console. Okay, excuse a minute. Hello, ndohorera kindu thaa igiri na nuthu uguo. Okay, excuse, sorry for that, sorry for the interruption. So console.log we are finishing JS today, and so console.log bravo. So if we run this, we normally run these JavaScript using node command and then sync.js. So you can see it logs from the first to the last. That is synchronous, like our code runs from top to bottom. But let's look at asynchronous programming. That is, we wait for a process to finish and then it completes. So I'm going to give that with an example using the timeout method. So we could say console.log start. This is a simple concept, but now helps understand promises and await async. Okay, sync await. So, and then we could do set timeout. Sorry. So set timeout. Okay. Yeah, just give me the template. So we can say console.log. Maybe we are downloading something. Download completed. And this should log after 3 seconds. For now, ignore. This is an arrow function. We'll discuss them more, and we'll have a look at how we utilize them in our programs. And the next, we can console.log finish or completed running. I want you to check at the order in which these will be logged on the console. So still do the same. Though the file is sync, we are doing asynchronous. So okay, I hadn't saved, so sorry. Let me copy that, let me clear, and so let me run that. So you've observed, it first logs start and then logs the last statement that is completed running, and then after that, it waits for the 3 seconds, that is 3000 milliseconds, and then logs the download completed. That's just a simple simulation, assuming we had maybe operations to fetch data from the database, or maybe fetch from another API, as we'll see when we begin our project. So that is asynchronous programming, and JavaScript continues executing of awaiting end, and then as we've seen, the last statement being logged. And so here are some examples of common asynchronous programming. For example, these are API requests. We'll see the fetch method, which helps us to fetch data from external API. That is database queries. We'll see these when we do our node. Have authentication, file uploads, image downloads, reading a file, payment processing in a checkout in e-commerce platforms, notifications, and chat applications. And then let's first understand the JavaScript runtime and how these callbacks work. So the runtime works using four major components working together in a loop. We have the call stack, we have web APIs, we have callback queue, and we have event loops. We'll discuss each of these. So the event loops continuously checks whether the call stack is empty. If it is, it moves completed callbacks from the queue into the call stack to run. So we've talked about this example of arrow functions, we'll say, and for me to elaborate a callback. So a callback is a function called inside another function. So for example, the example here we have for function first, and then we call in the second function, and then after that, we define the function second and console.log hello, and we call first. So when we call this first function here, it first executes the second function and then calls itself, and so last and this follows the concept of LIFO, that is last in, first out. So the execution steps here is that we call the function first here and pass in the second function. So second finishes and pops off before first can call return. We'll see these more examples in our project of how callbacks work. Okay, so let's look at different web APIs that are provided by browser or node, and not by the JavaScript language itself. So I hope you went through the video I posted yesterday on DOM manipulation. And so some of the web APIs that we have is the set timeout function that I just used. We have the fetch method. We'll have to use it more, and you'll be using it more often in your projects. We have DOM events, which we said includes clicking, input, or submit. We have geolocation, and we have local storage, which we'll also use. So let's talk about the second thing, that was the callback queue. Okay, sorry, the third thing, which was the callback queue. And callback queue and event loop. So callback queue completed a synchronous callback. Wait here until the call stack is empty. Think of it as a line. So first come, first served. We've said these Asynchronous helps us to process the function or things in the backend while the code continues executing. So this will be after an asynchronous function or the await is being executed, it's the one in the queue. And then when it finishes, it pops the result out, and then another function waiting in the queue is loaded into the callback queue. And event loops so continuously checks whether the call stack is empty. If it is, move the next callback from the queue into the stack to run. So examples of callback. So a callback is a function passed as an argument to another function. So let's look at this example. For example, greet. Okay. Let me just type an example here of the greet so that you can understand. So function greet, and we said a function can take any argument. It could take an object as an argument, it could take a function as an argument, it could take a number, anything as an argument. So console.log will be saying welcome, and then we call our callback. So yeah, so we call it just the normal way we call a function. And so this callback could be anything. So we can just say hello, just function a student name. So, and I will be calling it with the name. Do we need that? No, so we could okay. Yeah, we don't need to, do we need to pass a console log to it? Let's just say that. So console.log, the name. Okay, so let's see. Great. Then we call student name, Kennedy. Okay. So internal server error. This confuses me. Here we passed it as an arrow function. Okay, let me just use this, but I'll look at why the other failed. Let's just understand it through this one. That. Just call it that. Okay, so yeah, you see it calls in this now. We passed this as an arrow function, so that's why it logs welcome student. So we talked about the different states of a promise, and we said it could be pending, fulfilled, or rejected. And a promise settles once, moving from pending to either fulfilled or rejected. Never does both, and never back to pending. So like it just execute once and can return one of the three states. So we have an example of a promise here. So we have the promise is equals to new promise, resolve, reject, then let success is equals to true. So if success, resolve, logged in, else reject invalid password. This is a simple simulation of this login function. And so resolve and reject are functions you call yourself whenever your assigned logic determines success or failure. I won't run this example, but we'll see it in its application. This is just some bits of theory. And then we can use these promises using the dot then or chaining it with the dot then, dot catch, and dot finally. So for example, promise dot then, we had example defined the promise here. So promise dot then result is equals to console.log result. This is here we are assigning the variable returned by this function. Yeah, the variable returned by this promise to a variable result here, and console logging it. We look at we can change that to catch if an error occurs, and we console log the error, and we have the finally finished. I want to elaborate this using a function or a function that you can relate, and one that we will use in our project. So we also have the assign await. This is it's it's more like easier to understand and closely mirrors synchronous code. That is, for example, we define an asynchronous function using the async keyword and then the function name, and then okay, yeah. So we only use await when we have defined the async keyword. We'll look at this. So this is the project, or this is the API we'll be mostly working on in our project. And for error handling, we'll have this when we are coding or starting the project. So for error handling, we do the try catch blocks. So for example, the async function load products, we have try const response is equals await fetch products to that, and then if response dot okay, that is if response succeed. Oh, sorry, if response not okay, that is the not operator here, the period. It throws an error which have failed to fetch products, and then we do the const data await response dot json. We convert the response into a JSON object, and then we console.log data, and then catch error, and then console.log the error message. We'll be doing this just in a few. So let me start our project. Just wanted to highlight those so that when we are using them, you don't get stranded on this. So, okay, let's start. I don't know how many minutes we've taken. We have like around 30 minutes, which I believe will help us to start the project today. And after that, we'll proceed with styling and completing it tomorrow. Okay, so this project, let me start, let me create the script.js. And let me create one HTML file. First, to enable us in setup. So for this project, we'll be first fetching products. And we'll have, okay, let me do multi-comments. So we will fetch products. We'll have the cart. We'll have a cart. We'll also have we'll have the cart. We'll simulate checkout. And so for these, we'll have pages like home page with a few products. Okay. We'll also have the products page. We'll also have, that is, I'm giving the outline for the final project, which we'll complete by tomorrow. We'll also have a page for, that is the home products page. We'll have the checkout page, and we'll have the cart page. So today we'll just be layering out the JavaScript for this, and tomorrow we'll finish on the on the other bits on styling and everything. So let's start our project. We'll define the URL we'll be using, and we'll be using the fake API. Fake API store. Here, let me just copy it from here. Yes, so this is the URL we'll be using to avoid making mistakes. Let me just paste it. Yeah, so that will be our URL, and we'll define a function. We'll define an async function, fetch products. So we'll use the try catch, and so const response is equals to await. We use the fetch method. We call in the URL, and then we need to convert this into a JSON object. So const products is equals to await res.json. So, and we need to return the products. Good. We'll look at what happens when we don't return that. So we curve the cut here, and we'll be returning errors that might arise, maybe if the API is down, or any error that could arise while fetching products. So we console.error, and we pass in that error message, error fetching products, and we also pass the error. Good. So for example, let's see, or let's understand what our function returns, or the structure of the data we'll be working with. So this URL, let me run it on the web. So this URL, for example, let me show you what it gives. Let's see. Let me just use Chrome, not Perplexity. Yeah, let me open this in Chrome. It's the one that will give us the outputs directly without any issues. So this is how the products return, or this is how we fetch data from the database. That is, people working on the backend will give you APIs that you'll call, either to create or fetch data from the database. And so, understanding our data that we are fetching from the fetch API, we have an array of products which is returned in a JSON format. And so these are array has different objects as products, and each product has an ID, a title, a price, a description, category, image, rating, rate, and count. That is the number of products in stock. We'll see how to access the features inside this, or a feature from what we return in our functions. And we'll use the array methods that we were talking about the other day. So let's proceed. So that's what I wanted to show, the structure of our response. So let's, for example, console log and test if our fetch product returns the product. So we can assign what is returned, or let me do this. You see, we must assign whatever is returned from our asynchronous function and assign it to a variable. So if I just call the function fetch products, let's see what it returns. Okay. So it's script, sorry, not scripts. So it runs and returns nothing. But if, let's say, I hadn't passed these return products here, let me just comment it. Just to see what happens when we don't pass the return from the function. Trans still returns nothing. So, okay, let's save that and let's say so let's say const. Let's just call it with the then. So fetch products dot then. We can do the console.log products using the arrow function. So let's see that trans, and you see it has console logged the products just the same way we saw them in the browser. So that's what our function returns. And you also need to remember that you must always assign what is returned to a product, or we could have just done this const products is equals to fetch products and then just console log the products. It will still return the same thing. Let me clear the console. Now the script. So I don't know, I think I assumed, you see, it returns pending. Yeah, this is what I wanted to show when it's not, yeah, okay. So that one is not working, but we needed to await that so that our promise resolves. And so it logs the product. So you need to call it in an await, but we'll see how we utilize this in a function. So we've seen our product and what it returns. So let's define a function to load the products, and we will display these products in a browser. So we can have the async function load products. Yeah, I hope I got the spellings right. So under const products is equals to, we await our function for fetch product to fetch them. And so yeah, let me just see this. Yeah, okay, love putting it in the try to catch any error. So const products is equals await the fetch products. Good. And so let's we talked about DOM manipulation and creating an element. So in our index.html, we'll have a section for products. So const container, let me create it first here. Okay, so let's create our HTML first. I can rename this to e-commerce store, and then here we have our section, and we give it a class or an ID. Yeah, give them both class because we need them for styling. So product, and we give it an ID of products. Yeah, so that's our section with an empty. So how we load JavaScript is we load it using the script element, and we pass in the src attribute is equals to scripts.js, so that each time we call this, it will run here. So let's move to this. So we say const container is equals to document dot get element by id, get element by id, and we named it the products. So yeah, and so you could have the, okay, so we have this, the container dot inner HTML. We first clear anything, or each time we invoke this function, and so we can also have this. Now we map through the products and render them in the browser. So products dot for each. So we have product, or could be yeah, let's just call this, we are passing in as an arrow function. So we can have a const this for a product card is equals to document dot create element, and we'll create a div here, and so card, we give it a class for styling. Class name, it could be a product card. Sorry, product card. Okay, let's just use these and so we need to now add inner HTML to it. So card.inner HTML, and we use the string literals I was talking about. It's created using the backslash, and for this we are going to display the image. So we have that, and we give it the src, which will be equals to the, we access the properties with the dollar sign. So product dot image, we see we fields our so the fields our products contain, which we return, and then the alternative text, we talked about these ones in HTML, so we can give it the product.title. Yeah, so that's our product image, and then we have a h3. Just use a few elements. We have a h3 for the title, so product.title, Good. And then, so we close that. We have a H3 for the price. And finally, we have a button. And we give it a class of add to cart. This is an add to cart button. And yeah, so add to cart. Close the button. Good. Time is flying. So we need now to add, we talked about events and event handlers, so we need to add what happens when a user clicks that button. So we could say const add to cart button, or I can just, yeah, so let's call it that is equals to document dot query selector. We talked about this, and we said we pass the correct CSS selectors. We have the hash for ID, the period or the dot for class, and etc. And we could select it by maybe, let's say, this tag name. So add to cart, we need to add event listener, and then we add a click event. So we register the event, and then we add a handler function which will pass that callback, and we just call the add to cart function, which we haven't defined yet, and we pass in the product.id method because we'll be passing it using that one. Is highlighting an error. Let's see where. Oh, we haven't put the catch. So good. We also now said that we also said that we need to append this to the parent element so that it can be rendered. So we can have the container dot append child, and we are appending the card. Yeah, we are appending that card, and so we need to catch our errors. The errors. So we console.error. Error loading products, and so yeah, we give the error also. Good. So let's see if our function runs or if it renders. Let's debug. Let's run and debug. So let's see why it doesn't run. And so on. So, okay. Something could be happening. We are not calling our function here. So I haven't called that load products function. That's why it's not displaying. That's something also most people forget. Let's see. So our function is not returning the products. clear this. Let's debug. So const products, wait, load products. So fetch products must be having an error somewhere. Still together. Okay, let's see where our error is coming from. So we have our URL was working, our fetch product was working. Then, so we are fetching products from here, and we are selecting the container. So products.for each. Let's see if we are returning products. So let's add a console log here for just checking whether we are returning. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, let's see. And let's run this. We don't have a console log anywhere. So now the scripts.js. Our product are fetching, and the error is document is not defined. Why? Okay, so let's see. So products. I can see why the document is not defined, but why? So return. Let's see this logic here. Stop that. Okay, let me see the error function clearly. At least we'll also be learning some is our event listener returning an error. Let's see. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was supposed to do this to select the card, not the document. So sorry about that. And let's see. See, sometimes you can be stuck on an error somewhere, and you don't understand the error, and you try to look at the error, like what was just happening there. Just needed to call the card, and I could have taken all the time there. So let's because we haven't added that, we can just add an alert. Maybe we haven't defined that, so product added to cart, just to maybe show what happens, or how to show that our event handler is triggering. So these are the products which are unstyled, and we will style them. We just wanted to work on this. So you can see if I click on any add to cart button, our function is working. Yeah, so we've looked at how to work with the fetch API. Or okay, so let me add a small style, but that will take a lot of time. Let's proceed with so that is loading our product, but we were testing whether they are working. So let's continue with some functions. Let me do away with this first. Just wanted to show you that the way we render the products here. Let's add some more function, like, let me stop that. So let's add more functions, like adding to cart. We have a function add to cart, and so here is where we'll be using the local storage. I haven't talked about that, but I'll be talking on it as we do this. So for example, let's see how we do this. So let cart is equals to, I don't know if you people can add me like 10 more minutes so that we can push this to some more functionalities. So I'll take like 10 more minutes. So let cart is equals to, the way we do the storage, so we'll have to do the JSON dot pass, that is to convert what is stored in the local storage into a JSON object. So JSON dot pass local storage dot get item cut, or if we don't have any items in the local storage, we can return our cart as an empty array. So so we have the add to cart function. And so before adding to cart, we need to check if the product, if item exists in the cart already, because we need to have a logic. If the item exists, we increase its quantity by 1, and if the item does not exist, we add it to cart with a quantity of 1. So for example, here existing item, const existing item is equals to, so cart dot filter. Oh yeah, we need to be calling this with the ID element, ID argument. So we have the item, and we are also passing it as an arrow function. So item, we check whether the item dot ID matches our ID that we passed as the argument. So if existing item, we need to increment quantity by 1. So So we'll have to increment quantity by 1. So existing item dot quantity plus is equals 1. This is how we increment. So each and every time our button is clicked, the quantity will increase by 1. And then else, if the item does not exist, we need to add it with a quantity of 1. So we have the cat.push cat.push. We have the ID, which will be ID, and we have the quantity, which will give a value of 1. So I needed to explain how we use local storage and why we use it. For example, we use local storage so that have you ever thought like why after each and every time you go to your e-commerce platform, could be Amazon or one that is popularly used in Kenya where I am, which is Jumia, and you add products to your cart, close the browser, and tomorrow when you come back again, still your products that you added to cart are there. So that is what add to cart helps us with. So we need to set this to local storage. So local storage dot set item. We set the cart. I'll explain this maybe later tomorrow or after this, but I asked you for 10 or 15 minutes. You may use that. So we also need to stringify this. So JSON.stringify our cart element. Yeah. Okay. So that's how we set an item and add it to cart. We are just simulating. We haven't introduced the backend yet. So that is our add to cart function. I could add one more of removing from cart. So function remove from cart. We'll see this in action tomorrow. I won't run them because of time. I'll just lay out the logic. So we need to find the cart. So construct, okay. So let's our cart be JSON dot, we need to load the it from the local storage. So JSON dot pass. We have local storage dot get item. We are getting our cart. Good. And so removing that, we are removing it by ID. So our cart now will be cart.filter will be item, and it will not be equals to item dot id, not equal to our id. That is how we filter out an item or an element from the cart, and we now set the updated cart still using the local storage. So we need to update the cart. So we'll have local storage dot set item. We're setting our cart, and we need to convert it into a JSON. dot stringify our cut. Okay, good. So that now removes an item from cart. We'll test them tomorrow. Let me define another function for rendering cart and displaying this item. It will be an async function, render cart. We'll also refactor our render product, or the load product function. We'll refactor it, but we'll have to do it tomorrow. We need to add a few functionalities. So we need to fetch our cart. Okay, so we have to do that for us to load our pass or our cart. So local storage dot get item. We are getting our cart, or it could be an empty array. We could have an instance where the cart is empty. So we have also const products because we need to iterate through the product. Because you saw in our cart, we are not storing a lot of information. We are not storing the images, or we are not storing the images. We are not storing this description, the stock, or all the details. So we need to iterate through that. So is equals to await the fetch product. Good. And we can define our container because we'll have a cut container. So we could have our const cut container is equals to document. Okay, let me plug my laptop. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's just call it a container, or const cut cont container is equals to document dot get element by ID. We'll define this in we'll have a cut dot HTML, and so that we can call it our cut, so that I don't forget. And we have a section with the ID cut container and a class of container. Good, we'll need the class for styling. So we'll also need to load the script and src the scripts.js that way. Good, let's have that in the meantime. And we are getting the element by ID. We call it the cut container. Good, I'm just finishing this cut method and complete the class. We'll pick it from there tomorrow. So yeah, cut container, and then we have cut. Have the inner HTML, we clear it first. So cut container dot in a HTML. First set it to an empty string, and we'll now filter through the products and display the ones that exist in our cart to the cart element. So we'll do the products dot for each. No, yeah, product dot filter, sorry, because we need to filter through the products, and so we are filtering a product, and okay. Function render cart. What argument do we need here? Will we be calling our cart with? Oh yeah, we have. Let me think about this. Product. And writing the name product is a problem. So products dot filter. So product, and we are filtering the products that product.id will be equals to no. Yeah, we have our cut dot id. Okay, let's do this because we need to render the product. So we have const product is equals to product dot to take this through. We need to, let me see the steps that we need to take here. First need to filter through the products and only returns the one that are in the cart. So products.filter. Yeah, to avoid confusion, let me just call it item here. So yeah, we need to find that. So item. So const product equals to item.id equals to our cart.id. So that finds a product or a product that exists in a cart through the ID, and so we could have the const card also here, and we call in the card to be document dot create element. Here we are creating a div. We also give it a class name to be cut product, and so card dot inner HTML. We use the string literals, and we say here we have the image, and the src will be equals to the image. No, we're talking about the item. So item dot image, and the alt, but we can modify these later. I'll have to brainstorm over this to see what will return. So this one now returns the item dot title, Okay, good. We also need to return the h3 with the product name. Okay. There might be some mixed up. Need to so yeah, yeah. Let me stop here because I will confuse you. I've seen a lot of things I need to refactor. So let's just end this at that because of time. But tomorrow we'll complete this. We will have filter functionalities. We'll style our product well because tomorrow 1.5 hour will just be based for purely working on this. So today I just wanted to finish on the assign and show you how to use the fetch product and the promises. We'll complete this e-commerce store tomorrow. So thank you so much, and let's meet tomorrow, same time, same place. Bye bye. Let me end. Yeah.